Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Star Wars: The Acolyte. Someday, those noble intentions you all have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Star Wars: The Acolyte, Episode 7. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, except it's way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so. And then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we all see things from a different point of view, let me introduce you to the lovely Force wielders joining me today. First up, he's the jovial, jurisprudent justifier of justice, Justin, the Jedi-loving Lawrence.
A vergence, you say?
Dude, every time we hang out, I feel a vergence.
Oh, it's constant. It's the constant feels.
I also heard someone talking about this episode and said you'd find a lot of vergence at like a Comic-Con. Find a lot of vergence.
Sure. Sure. Okay. I don't know how much I agree with that, but okay, sure.
Well, you never know. I mean, they have those like dating, those speed dating. Have you ever been to one of those? The speed dating? Oh, maybe not you.
No, I've never been one for the speed dating, but I've heard things about in terms of like the idea of like mixing the fandoms into it, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like you get a bunch of people that are like into Magic the Gathering or, you know, any of those like card games or, you know, and they all get to kind of share in this experience of doing a speed dating. It could be fun. You meet someone that's, you know, kind of in your realm, if you will.
Yeah, and then you're no longer a vergence. Okay, and then next to him, I'm feeling a presence I haven't felt in quite some time. We have a very special guest joining us, host on both the Reckless Rebellion podcast and Controller Club, and the senior editor at the Direct. We have the cool, coven-loving Kofar kid, Klein, the vergence in the Force, Felt.
Where was Basil this week, guys? He's gone. I hope we get him back. We've got one episode left. My boy, the Beaver. Actually, a bigger question is, where is Yord's Padawan, guys? Like, what are we doing here? We introduce her, we give her a name, and she just disappears. We never see her again.
That's actually a really good point.
You know, and like, is she wondering like, where's Yord been? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
she's waiting. She's sitting in the break room, sipping her coffee or whatever, her Jaff, and is like, I can't wait till Yord gets back.
I have so many stories to share with him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Klein, how's it going? You know, we had you on for our Watch Club finale for Ahsoka, and here we are with the penultimate episode for The Acolyte. And, you know, the Star Wars fandom, I think it was fair to say that it was a bit riled up a bit during and after Ahsoka. But now I think we've seen a new high and a new low for social media and Star Wars. What's your journey been like so far with The Acolyte?
I have actually really dug The Acolyte so far.
Cool.
I see what people are saying. There is some justifiable criticism out there. But what I will say is I've been having a good time with it. I haven't been thinking too deeply about it. Some of the things that people don't like, I've actually been really into. This new sort of exploration of the Force and how different factions and different people view the same sort of thing. And I really like that. I wasn't big into the High Republic books. I famously can't read. So this is my first experience dealing with a lot of these like different factions. I know that was a big deal in the High Republic books of like, this group of people views the Force this way, and this group of people views the Force this way. And so getting tastes of that here, I've really enjoyed. But I don't know. There are a few things missing for me. I don't think that this hits like the heights of like an Andor or the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian. But I really like the ideas. I've been saying since the beginning, I think that let Leslie Headland at least pitch something else after this, because she's got great ideas. Maybe she can have this sort of like, here's the idea of something, and then bring on a team of writers to like flesh that out and build it out. But like, I think she's got a really, really good like base level ideas, and so I've been liking it. I don't know. I've compared it a little bit to this might sound derogatory to some. It's like a really good season of a CW show to me. I'm just like, I'm into it, but I'm also not taking it like hyper seriously.
Right. I see what you mean by that. Yeah. I think we like, I can, for myself, I'm very much aligned with you. I've enjoyed aspects of what they're doing with this show in terms of broadening what the Force is and how there are different religious sort of beliefs around it that have formulated their own understanding and how they utilize it. And basically just drawing more relevance around the fact that the galaxy existed long before the Skywalker saga, right? And the idea that so much can be explored in that. And you're absolutely right. I think Leslie Headland obviously has sort of an interest and has really great ideas. I'm wondering, though, if the idea, because her approach obviously with this was to bring in so many different people in the writer's room for this series. I'm wondering if that's a bit of the problem, because a lot of the problems that I've been having, at least with this show, is from a writing standpoint of just certain things being too convenient or not necessarily fleshed out or explained. And I feel like that's where the show really struggles. But everything else, like what it's opening up and what it's introducing, especially even some of the things that we get from this episode, it's very interesting. And I like the idea of kind of, again, cementing, not necessarily like, again, this isn't the beginning of this galaxy, but saying that some of the stuff that we've already seen already happened years and years and years and years and years ago, and really touching on sort of an origin of specific elements. So yeah, I'm with you. I think that it hasn't reached the highs of something like Andor, which I think maybe some people might have thought, like with a murder mystery, it might go super dark, and that we're under that impression based on our high hopes. But you know, it's definitely kept some of that Star Wars camp or charm, if you want, but has like sort of weaved in a murder mystery, I guess.
I think at the end of the day, the Acolyte will and should be viewed as a success for Lucasfilm and Disney, simply because they proved that they could do it. They proved that they could tell a story outside of the quote-unquote timeline that we know and love, and it was successful enough. I've actually been surprised looking at like the viewership numbers and looking at people in my just general sphere, how much this seems to be resonating with people who I would have thought would just scoff at this, go, I'm done with Disney Plus, I'm done with Star Wars for right now, tell me when they have a movie coming out. The viewership numbers are crazy. This is I think the only behind Obi-Wan Kenobi, the biggest streaming series in Star Wars history, which seems wild to me. And yeah, I know people who have sworn off Star Wars that are getting back in and going, I love this, I love the murder mystery, I love the new era. So I think it should be viewed as a success, whether it like all the narrative pieces fit together. My biggest issue doesn't actually have to do with the writing, doesn't have to do with a lot of the story beats. For me, it's I'm a production like value guy. I can see TV budgets when they're there, and that's like, I have famously said I don't like TV because of that. I don't like being able to see the seams. I've seen what this world looks like.
Yes.
On a big screen with a huge budget. And so when I see like these costumes that kind of look Spirit of Halloween-y at times and some sets that like maybe don't look the best, I don't think it's nearly as bad as something like the Book of Boba Fett on that front. That one was atrocious when it came to production value. But like there are moments where I'm like, I am watching a lesser product, and I don't like that I can notice that.
Yeah, I think we've definitely, even within our own circles, heard some comments about specifically the lightsabers looking very much like just another marketing ploy for Galaxy's Edge lightsabers, in that they're so thick and chunky. And I get what they were going for with the idea of having real LEDs for the actors and for them to sort of feel that a bit more. But yeah, I can see where you're coming at from that standpoint. I'm excited to get into this episode because this is an episode that I think we've all been waiting for. We've all been waiting to sort of see how it turns out. Not all of it really worked for me, but Klein, your positive attitude that you're you're coming in with is already starting to bring my hopes up for how I feel about this episode after our conversation. So before we turn into smoke monsters and then get stabbed, let's get to this week's episode titled Choice, directed by Kogonada. Episode 7 takes us, again, we all predicted this, back to Brendok 16 years earlier. We see the Jedi scanning the planet and collecting samples of various plant life, searching for any information on a vergence in the Force and an answer as to why Brendok was cataloged as lifeless 100 years ago, and yet now the planet is thriving. Torben complains about eating Numa legs and how he wants to go back to Coruscant as he feels what they're doing isn't important. His master, Indara, tells him to calm himself, and alongside Sol, they explain that a vergence in the Force they explain what a vergence in the Force is and how they are on a noble mission. The next morning, Indara senses a disturbance in Sol. He questions her methods of teaching Torben, but she tells him that's why she has a Padawan and he doesn't. Indara then asks Sol to cover the river, and he happens upon the twins conversing under the Bunta tree. It's the same conversation we saw in episode 3, and Sol witnesses May using the Force. He follows them and sees them scolded by Mother Coral, and then attempts to calm in with Indara, but he doesn't get an answer. And then we cut to the title. So Indara here, during this little campfire cookout, she mentions a hyperspace disaster that caused them to catalog this planet as lifeless. Now, Klein, you already mentioned that you didn't really get into the books, but I want to start off with you anyways. Do you have any insight into what that hyperspace disaster was? And then later on, I'd love to talk about, why do you think Torben wanted to get back to Coruscant so badly?
Oh, the hyperspace disaster, I haven't read the books, but I do know that as a part of the, High Republic multimedia project, there was a giant, I think they'd call it the Great Hyperspace Disaster, where things sort of fall apart. I don't know the exact specifics of it, but I'm sure that's what she's referring to, and I'm sure that people like my Reckless Rebellion co-host Thomas Carter Rochester, who's a diehard High Republic fan, was sitting there going, pointing at the TV, doing the Leonardo DiCaprio, I know that. And I think that actually segues perfectly into what I think this show has done quite well is, if you've read the books, if you've done the whole High Republic thing, there's just these little nuggets. There's just these little things for you, whether it's Master Vernestra on Coruscant, just the lightsaber whip, this mention, it's not too much that me as a viewer, I'm going to go, who hasn't read the books, go, I have no idea what they're talking about. It's just these little sprinklings, because it does take place a long time after those books happen, right?
Yeah, it's 100 years, if I'm not mistaken, right? After those books, and then 100 years, obviously, before the events of Phantom Menace. So it's kind of in the middle. But you're absolutely right. Darcy, our co-host, Darcy Hudson, big diehard Star Wars fan, big diehard Star Wars literature fan, knows about the High Republic era and has followed it greatly. And he said the same thing to me. He was like, yeah, that hyperspace disaster is right from the books, and it's definitely one of that moment for fans who know that storyline and are able to say, oh yeah, there it is. And to your point, I think what's really great about the show is that they're nailing and just kind of sprinkling in all of these little nuggets to kind of give it the connectivity, while also, how you pointed out before, just focusing on this idea of where the Force is at this point, how it's being seen. It's not just light and dark. There's more of a mentality around sort of factions and the use of it, and sort of a different belief around it. So I think that even that in itself, in this era, it's very much continuing that conversation about it.
I think with Torben, it gave me a little bit of Luke vibes too, oh, I want to go to Taji Station. But I also, I mentioned a few weeks ago on this Watch Club that if I lived in Star Wars, realistically, I'd probably be a Coruscant boy. So I get it. I get Torben wants to be a Coruscant boy. He wants to get back to Coruscant. But I think this is also showing, the fact that, yes, very much he is a Padawan. He's showing his selfishness. He's showing the weakness side of him that is the reason he's not a knight, is the reason he's nowhere near master. And so I think this is just the start of some of the bad decisions that he starts to make in this episode that eventually lead him to feeling the guilt and taking on the Barash vow and killing himself.
Yeah, I think it's foreshadowing, obviously, the events that would unfold in this episode, but like, it's kind of like the first sign that he's a bit of a weak-minded Jedi, and you know, at this point, right? He's a Padawan, as you pointed out, but you know, it's kind of going off. We were talking about this offline about the perception of the Jedi right now. There's just so many of them, and they might all be kind of assuming that, yeah, I want to be a Jedi, and you know, I'm going to be a Jedi, and so on and so forth. But you know, maybe they're not. You know, they're not there. Their minds aren't really in it. So you know, I think for Torben, at least with his attitude, especially the way he kind of wants to get back home, and I think he has an emotional attachment to, obviously, Coruscant. You know, it just shows that his sign of sort of, again, like you said, the weakness of his mind and how that's going to kind of unfold in this episode.
Well, he doesn't know, like, necessarily why they're there. Like, you get the sense that they've kind of been out there looking for things, whether it's on this planet or others, for quite some time. And we do get the introduction of the vergence here, which anytime you can bring in just like a new proper noun for me to know, like, I get into it. And so him doing this and going through these, like, literally carrying and scanning moss for hours and hours and hours without finding anything, I too would be like, why the heck are we here? Like, what are we doing? Especially if I am a young Padawan like that. Like, we are looking for something that I do not fundamentally at this point do not think exists
or understand.
If it does, we're never gonna find it. Or I don't understand, why should I care about this thing? Whereas everyone else has kind of bought into it, like, oh no, we need, like, the vergence is a big thing. We need to find it. I think that there's signs that it could be here. Whereas he doesn't. This is it, like, fairly early on in his career. Like, he doesn't really understand. It doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have another theory for why he might be feeling this way, but I'm going to get to it a little bit later because it gets a little deeper in his mind. I want to say I do love seeing Soul with the K-pop haircut, going to town on that Nuna leg. And I think they should bring those to Galaxy's Edge. Like, I know I was just saying, like, I thought the lightsabers were a bit of marketing, but dude, they just take those giant turkey legs they have at Disney, bring them over to Galaxy's Edge, Nuna leg. Done. You're welcome. You're welcome, Disney. I don't know. Food just always looks so tasty when it's cooked by Wookiees. What do you think, Klein?
I agree. I did like the conversation they have about, like, the food, and it's like, never insult a Wookiee's cooking, and I was like, that's good, that's funny, I like that. That's a bit of personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and definitely a lot more personality than those. What were those metal detectors that they were walking around with? I don't know what. Like, I love when Star Wars takes from, like, our real world technology, but that felt. I don't know. That one I was like, I don't know.
The
that
giant iPads that they're like pointing at the ground and scanning things. Yeah. Feels like
nothing here.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn
And then they're like
degrees.
storing it in like a shoebox or something like that. Like
something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Felt a little off.
I saw a tweet go by today, and it was like a photo of the opening. It's like the opening of the new Acolyte episode. It was Carrie-Anne Moss, and then carrying Moss.
Yeah, I retweeted that because I died laughing.
I love that. All right, let's keep going here. So Sol watches Coral and the twins enter the fortress. He uses the slanted wall to climb up the fortress and then continues to climb a mountain. And I'm just like, bro, like, let's see Sol's arms. Like, is Sol swole? You know what I'm saying? He watches Mother Anastasia. Swole.
Yeah.
He watches Mother Anastasia training the twins from a catwalk hidden in the distance from them. As he leaves, he must have, like, knocked something or, like, caused something to creak because Mother Coral walks over to investigate, and they send the twins off to their room. We then see him spying on the witches performing their rites at the mouth of a deep hole, and then we see him reporting back to Indara. He says he's discovered a force cult. He thinks they're witches, and Torben asks if they could be Night Sisters. Indara dismisses this, saying they don't raise younglings, and let alone they don't train them. Indara suggests that they ask the council for guidance, but Sol says they have to act now. that the witches are about to perform a ceremony, and that and he fears that the girls are in danger. Later, at the fortress entrance, Torben recognizes that the location might be an old mining site, and Kalnaka slices the controls and the Jedi enter. We see the same events play out, only this time we get to see inside Torben's head, and his mind is taken over by Mother Anastasia. She tempts him by asking him what he truly wants, and he says he wants to go back to Coruscant. Immediately, he's brought to his knees, his eyes go black, and the rest of the scene plays out as we saw in episode 3. So, Klein, let's start with you again. What did you think of now seeing inside Torben's mind, and what do you think Anastasia was truly doing in there? Like, why do you think she was like, that's the right thing to do in this moment?
I thought it was very cool seeing inside of his mind. One of my favorite Star Wars things is Force visions and like making the Force a physical space, whether that be Rey looking at the mirrors on Ahch-To in The Last Jedi, or even the like World Between Worlds stuff. Like, I love getting to like actually physically embody this magical thing that we've kind of built up in our heads. As for what she wanted, I'm not entirely sure. I do believe Mother Anastasia's intentions across the episode were good. Like, she just wants to keep her daughter safe, and she could sense with her attunement to the Force and overall power that like he maybe was the weaker one. I mean, it's fairly evident just like right away. He's younger than everyone. Like, his mind is the most feeble. So like, let's play with scare them, because she knows she can make him bend to her will, and then they may go away, they may not.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I thought he was the easiest target. She could sense, probably from her sort of being tuned in to the Force, his sort of weakness, what was clouding his mind, which is why there was a sense of isolation there. He could feel that the pressure was getting under him as she was like, what is it that you want? What is it that you want? And I think she was in there to make an example of him and to exploit his fear and his weak mind as a Padawan. Because I think the other 3 Jedis that were there, Kalnaka, Sol, and Dara, I think their minds were probably a lot more. He uses the word earlier, I think, fortified and protected. So yeah, it's exactly how I felt. He was the easy target.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we will eventually talk about Kalnaka. We see how many witches it takes to take control of him. So you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, Torben, he's a little Coruscant boy. He's not ready to he doesn't have his mind fortified yet. But I do want to go to a little moment, and it's a very specific line. And this is something that, like, listen, you're going to say I'm reaching here, but I do think this actually really could potentially be what they were going for. And I think we get a little more insight and context as to why Torben wants to go back so badly to Coruscant. Mother Anastasia calls him a son of paupers from the planet Bonadon. And I was looking up, I didn't find much in terms of canon for Bonadon. There's a little bit, but it's big in legends, and apparently it says that Bonadonians found off-world were either from wealthy corporate families or those that had escaped the life of corporate servitude. So, I think most likely with his family, his parents being poor, they're paupers, I think he was subjected to a life of servitude. And now he's, maybe this is his first big mission, or one of his first big missions that he gets to go on. He's so excited. He's a Jedi. And what are they doing? They're walking around putting moss in boxes and stones in boxes. And it feels maybe to him like not exactly the life that he thought he was signing up for when he joined the Jedi, right? And I think, we talked about, Justin, the seeing Yord consistently, guns out, buns out, blazing with the saber, constantly walking in. And we do see a little bit from Torben in this episode where he's just so quick to, detach his lightsaber or what have you. So I think that might be a little bit more insight or element into it, with the line that his parents were paupers. I don't know. That's just a thought I had.
Interesting.
But I also think, we talked about the sense of seduction, and I don't necessarily think that this was like a like as sexual as it was with
Obviously
Chimere in
not.
that pool.
Come on, man. Ain't no
Nothing
like
ever will.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing ever will be. We've only had the pectoral exposure from Kylo and Chimere, and it's unmatched. Let me tell you.
Yeah, you got to start with a "k" sound like Klein to have the.
I'm not giving you deltoids like
the
that.
sunlight.
I'm sorry.
I'm seeing the sunlight on your well-toned back right now. No, I think I think one thing that I sort of was recognizing though is it felt like a seduction but not sexual. It felt like a lot of what we see from the dark side and how they sort of play into your fears or play into the things that you want.
Like, I can give you what you want. I can give you what you desire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's sort of seduction for sure is at play here.
And I'm wondering if bewitching, and especially the way that we're looking at it, it is a sense of mind control, but it is also, I think it kind of reminds me of like a vampire. Like, you have to invite the vampire in. So she can only fully take control if he says the words of what he wants, if he actually asks her the question.
I totally believe that is accurate because that's exactly what she was looking for. And then as soon as she got that answer, she demanded that he, fall to his knees, and we were snapped back to the moments of episode 3 where we saw what happened, right? So, yeah, I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. It's again another way, as Klein was mentioning, like how we're seeing the Force or the thread or how they utilize that in their way to kind of exploit those internal conflicts that the people around them have.
And we don't know if that's something that is a common practice for this like group of witches. Like we haven't interacted with this kind of particular sect of Force users really ever at all. So that could the way that they frame it is like you should be afraid of this, but like I think that's also them playing on the whole idea of like the Jedi fear these witches simply because they use the Force differently than they use it.
Exactly.
And like that is a real world simile that is you see everywhere. I fear you because you are different. And so we are like, he is seduced, he is taken, but we don't know, like they could use this practice on each other. Like this could be something that they do all the time, and it's simply just a different way of accessing the Force through their minds.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of witches and of seeing them before, I was a little bit disappointed, not from a writing standpoint with this specific decision, just from my own prediction standpoint and headcanon standpoint that I really wanted to be right about this. But it seems that they are not the first of the Night Sisters. Torben asks if they are Night Sisters, and which means they must have already existed prior to this coven. But Justin, you got a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? I think you were mentioning offline to me how you felt as though there was a moment with Coral that felt a little more well earned, I guess, from episode 3.
Oh yeah. Like, so one thing that I really enjoyed about this episode is just how it does overlap with episode 3. So specific moments are very much like validated. So like in episode 3, when they are doing that little training session with Osha and May, and then there's a noise and Coral walks over and she just looks at this machine, we as an audience at episode 3 are like, what the hell's going on here? Why are we doing this? Right. But now it was just a great way to kind of overlap and connect those things and give some sense of validation as to why that happened. So now we know the reason why she walked over there was because Sol was, sulking around in the background and made some noise on some metal, and, there he was. Right. So that I liked how they kind of, played with the story that we had already seen and the new story to kind of overlap specific moments.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I was hoping he like stubbed his toe really hard though. Thought that would have been really funny. And he's like, I don't know. Or maybe your boy Klein, Basil came up and stomped on his toe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he smelled something weird. He was like, whoops.
So he's sniffing. Okay, so Torben sits there upset. He's really bummed out about what just happened, rightly so. And Indara sort of is looking over him. She compliments Sol on using the idea of testing the twins to buy them time to hear back from the council. Sol again expresses his concerns, this time more for Osha, saying she didn't have the ceremonial marking. He notices that now. Jeez. He says he believes Osha wants to leave with them back to Coruscant. Indara tells him not to confuse what Osha wants with what he wants. Then, on a new day, we see Torben meditating, and then he opens his eyes to look over, and he sees the twins alongside Mother Coral approaching. We see May during her testing, and Indara asks her what everyone was doing in the courtyard. May informs Indara that May informs Indara that her mama says, a lot of mama says, ascension means that Osha and I will lead the coven, and that's why she has the marking. Indara questions her on how that's possible, given that they're children, and May continues saying, Mama said everyone must walk through fear. Everyone must be sacrificed to fulfill their destiny. Indara thanks her for the explanation and then dismisses her. Sol asks Indara's permission to test Osha differently, and she agrees. We see the scene play out again, only this time we see her complete her test as she accurately senses the correct image. Indara asks Torben to run the girl's blood samples, and Sol reminds her that Osha passed. He's like, yo, don't forget, she passed. And then she says she'll await the council's decision and rejoin them at the camp. So, Klein, what did you think of May's explanation of the Ascension ceremony and the revelation that Osha actually passed her test?
I mean, the Ascension ceremony, it's so... I think this is really cool world building, learning these procedures, learning what this, more about this coven, more about this group of people. And I think it's really interesting because you can take it maybe as like, they have some nefarious plan. They're like sacrifice. Maybe these witches are going to eat the young to keep them living forever.
Ooh.
All Hansel and Gretel like.
Yeah, they're cooking them up like Numa legs over there. You know?
Exactly. I don't think that's the case. This to me, the creation of the twins themselves is one of the most interesting things about this series. And so the fact that they're like they were artificially born of the Force. They seem to be a vergence in amongst themselves. Yeah. I'm still in the camp that I think that they were created by way of the Force as an unnatural dyad. I think that that's what they ultimately are, and that's why the Jedi are so interested in them as well, because they don't really understand the power of the dyad, and the fact that these people have figured out how to make one unnaturally really fascinates them. But I don't know what this actually means that they're going to like lead the group. Like they're little kids. And so it is, I want to know more. I don't know if we're going to get more because everyone's dead and we have one episode left. And I think that this is going to be one of those mysteries that we leave kind of unsolved, but it is fascinating. I love just like learning more about these people, and the ways of life and that sort of thing. As for the test, it's cool. I'm like, I that's kind of what I assumed that she passed before. So there's a few quote unquote revelations in this episode of things we saw in the last episode that I'm kind of like, well, that's what I had in my head. So yeah. Like, okay. That's kind of the assumption I've been working under. Yeah. And I was hoping you might do something different, but this was one of them where, yeah, of course she passed.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I thought like it was pretty clear that she passed. She made it clear that she wanted to be a Jedi. Sol could see that she was, faking this thing, and he said, okay, well, let's do it again. And I think it was clear. In regards to how May describes the Ascension, it was described differently by Mother Anastasia in episode 3. Like, she refers to the Ascension as about walking through fear, and it's about sacrificing a part of yourself. Yep. Whereas May refers to it as everyone must walk through fear. Everyone must be sacrificed to fulfill destiny. Shout out to Twitter for posting this. But like, I thought that's really interesting in the sense of perception and understanding what this new faction is doing, what the Covenant is about. I think you're absolutely right, though, Klein. I think Mother Anastasia's intentions throughout this show has been just very motherly, very caring, very empathetic, while also being very passionate and caring. And I think it's reminiscent of any mother looking out for their child. And obviously, as you were mentioning, the fact that it becomes a revelation as we go through here, but that they are a vergence, or they are the example of the vergence. I think a lot of like them knowing that part is definitely something that we kind of sort of maybe his audiences were thinking that they were getting at. But the dyad piece, I don't know if they fully know that yet. I think we as an audience know that because we've seen this already, and we can see the sort of the hints of it. But that might be interesting because I don't know if they really know what they have on their hands here exactly, like especially given the way everything kind of unfolds. But we'll talk more about that, I think, as we get through to that part.
Well, I think going back to her saying, Mother Anastasia actually saying sacrificing a part of yourself, and then little 8-year-old May saying everyone must be sacrificed. It's a broken telephone situation. To me, I'm just like, Indara, like, you wouldn't want to just maybe double check your sources there, double check, go talk to the mom, like have a quick conversation with Mother Anastasia, be like, oh no, that's what she said. Oh no, okay, clearly, okay, you're right, that's what she meant. Okay, no, and like I don't know, there was a little bit of me that just sort of felt like they're really gonna just take her on her word for that's what it's going to be, and that they're really, it leads to the fear that sort of builds within Soul. And I get that this episode and this series is very much showing us these Jedi that, are kind of going against what they believe, and they're kind of, feeling things and going along with these fears, and these are the mistakes that they're making. But I just felt as though, like, I was like, she's 8. Like maybe she doesn't have that correct.
I don't think that's on Indara as much as it is on Soul for like
right.
really going there and be getting scared by this and being like, oh yeah, like they're going to do something to these kids. But like, I have to say, like, Indara seems almost parallel to that of Mother Anastasia. Very concerned, very, like, I almost think very thoughtful up until obviously the last moments of this episode where she is the one that says we have to lie to kind of hide this, like it's
right.
To protect everyone that's been involved, like. But even just that act, like, you can kind of understand from her perspective as someone who's looking after this team and having such care for them. That's what she's really looking out for. She is kind of performing a mother thing. Like at the end of the day, she shouldn't have died. Like she shouldn't have been on May's shit list, but she was, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's one of those things that it's interesting to see these parallels between Indara and Mother Anastasia.
Yeah, I do also want to call out, Indara explains that Osha is too old to join the Order at this point. And, in previous episodes, Justin, we had kind of talked about the idea that maybe Osha was the reason that by the time we get to Anakin, they're like, he's too old. Like, remember that Osha kid? So, like, that's clearly not the case in this. Now they've disproven yet another one of my fun headcanon theories that I was like, come on.
Stuff that you're just like, damn, this needs to be right.
It should be. They should change that. No, but yeah, I think in my mind, I think if anything at this point, it just reinforces that rule. So it hits
right.
even harder by the time they get to Anakin. They're like, listen, we've done this before. It's happened before. We really have a rule in place for a reason. Later that night at the Jedi camp, Indara informs Soul that the council said no. And he's super bummed out about it. They won't sanction bringing the twins to Coruscant or separating them from their coven. Torben and Soul push back, and Torben is disappointed even further when Indara tells him that they still can't go home. Soul, upset, says he wants to do what's right for Osha. The blood results come in, and Torben, in shock, explains that the M count is extremely high, and that their symbionts, which is a word I've not heard before, but apparently is a real word, symbionts are exactly the same. He explains that that would be impossible without some kind of manipulation. Indara suggests that they were artificially created, potentially by tapping into a power dense enough to split one consciousness into two bodies. Soul says only a vergence could create that type of power. Torben gets super stoked, and he excitedly hops on his speeder bike to go get the twins. It's their ticket home. Soul races through the woods chasing him, and we see moments from Episode 3, including Osha expressing her wish to become a Jedi, and then Mother Coral throws May to the ground and attacks her, and May blocks her not once but twice, and she calls her a good girl and tells her to get mad. Yeah. Then we see the rest of the Coven upset with Anastasia as they tell her she's sacrificing their future for the wish of a child. She says her children are their future. The Coven responds by telling her, you may be their mother, but you are also our leader. And Anastasia says, right now, I choose mother. Again, going back to the title of this episode, choice. Klein, what did you think of the reveal that the vergence in the Force allowed them to create allowed the creation of these two girls who were one consciousness split in two, and their symbionts are exactly the same?
I think it's very cool for the series and very cool for what I think it could potentially recontextualize some things that happen later in the Star Wars universe.
Exactly.
And I still, as I said before, am of the mind that this is a dyad. They may not understand what that means, and maybe a vergence and a dyad is the same thing. It could be potentially cool if Rey was artificially created. Who's to say that she wasn't, like, her and Kylo don't share more than just being best buds?
Right.
Like, I think that this is very interesting. I think it's a very cool twist for the pair. I'm fascinated to see what it means for the two of them going forward. Like, can they be their own person? Because they make it sound like they kind of can't. Like, it is the same consciousness split in two. They are ultimately the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fascinating to play with that, having two people who should ultimately make the exact same decision but might not, and have not, which I think that's really neat. I think that's really cool, and it's I don't know, just one of those very, very interesting ideas that they continue to present in this series that I think some people are going to brush off and be like, this is throwing away canon, this is dumb, this is delegitimizes Anakin or whatever. I don't know. I think that's really silly. I think it's really narrow-minded to come in thinking that way.
Course.
Sure, you might have an issue with the writing, the costuming, the way that things play out. There are moments in this that I think should hit that don't, just simply because of the way that the actor performed or the way it was written. But the ideas of this show are very, very cool, and this is one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. I think that the thing that is so surprising, and I said it before, like, you know, Star Wars didn't start with the Skywalker saga. There's a galaxy that existed before. So there's things that have happened in its past.
An even longer time
exactly,
ago.
and even longer
We'll get there,
time ago,
James
right?
Mangold, yeah.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
you know, the idea that they're, you know, that fans feel like sort of so precious about this idea that Anakin was the true vergence of the Force and the best example. Well, there are other examples, and I think the other thing that we're tapping into, like you said, Klein, is the dyad mentality and the fact that they are of the same consciousness. You know, I'm wondering if Rey and Kylo present something very unique and different because they're not from the same consciousness. But to your point, they could be. Who knows if there was something we don't really know too much about that yet. But I think what's interesting is that, as you were pointing out, like, they should be making the same decisions. But at this point, and we've kind of been going back and forth about how, like, they sort of they're very fair weather between their motivations. It's like, oh, I'm gonna seek revenge. Well, you know what? My sister's alive. I'm not gonna do that anymore. I've killed two Jedi, and I'm done. It's so thing. It may in some ways, Nate, justify. You know, it might be your sort of thing as to why they are like that, because they are from the same consciousness and they can't really commit without the other hand in hand. So because they're so
separate.
Exactly, because they're so broken apart,
Yeah.
they can't necessarily commit to anything. So I don't know. Like, it's really, really interesting. I'm not trying to justify bad writing decisions, but I'm just wondering, like, given the fact that they should be, as you pointed out, Klein, making the same decisions, sort of committing to the same sort of things, but they're very much not. Like, you know, Osha very much wants her own life. She wants everything outside of it. You know, outside of the covet, and May, while May just wants to stay comfortable and understands her role in this bigger picture mentality. But, you know, they both aren't on the same page, and they never have been. So what does that mean for this dyad? And do they really know? Do the Jedi really know what is so special about these two? Do you know what I mean? Because if they did, I think they would have done a far greater job of trying to secure both of them rather than just one of them, right?
Always one, but born as two. I think what you brought up, Klein, about people being upset, and it's like, this lessens the special aspect of Anakin's
Sound
birth.
like Coruscant boys.
Yeah, they're all Coruscant boys. My Coruscant boys wouldn't talk like that. Don't worry. But no, I think it is so silly to think that way, and I like how this adds to the long line of examples at how the Force is either manipulated or how the Force itself chooses to respond to the attempts from Force-sensitive beings trying to manipulate it. I think the idea of the rule of two almost being attempted within the birth of twins is really interesting because if I was a Sith and I was looking to hone and perfect that rule, the idea or concept of one consciousness split into two bodies could potentially create the perfect Sith and Acolyte sort of relationship, and I think there's an element there that a lot of people aren't really looking at. With a lot of people are talking about how it's comparing to Anakin, but I'm sorry, the two most popular twins in Star Wars are Luke and Leia, and so they're not identical twins, but one could argue that very much, and again, I get that this is like adding to the canon, and it might not have always been there. I don't know if George thought of the word dyad, but they were a dyad, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think this episode is continuing to sort of, and this moment is continuing to sort of show how how we misinterpret prophecies, how we misinterpret these stories and these prophecies over and over and over again. And who knows how old that prophecy of the chosen one is, right? As you keep saying, Justin, this didn't start at the Skywalker saga. So where did this prophecy come from? How much has it been changed or manipulated by different people that have come into interaction with it? And so I think this is just sort of continuing to add to different elements of that. And it's very, as you're saying, Klein, it is very interesting. It's a very interesting concept. But let's keep going here. As May smashes the control panel, locking the entrance and presumably the only exit, she does this like really stompy walk. Mother Coral commands her scouts to arm themselves for battle. Soul catches up to Torben, and the two scale the wall. We then see Indara and Kelnaka in their ship on approach. Anastasia is upset with Coral's violent response, and May starting the fire and then immediately getting scared as she's unsuccessful in attempting to stamp it out. Just before we keep going here, were either of you also a little disappointed by the fact that it really was May's little fire that caused this whole fortress to collapse? Because I remember when we came off of episode 3, Justin and I and Darcy, our other co-host, we were all talking like, there's got to be so much more to that, and we're like, the Jedi did it or whatever. But it seems like it's just her little fire. What do you think, Klein? Was that enough for you?
I think the master of my own disaster here in that, like, I was with you guys. Like, I saw everything happen in episode 3, and I had this far-flung theory that I had built up in my head that I had an idea that something else had happened, something worse had happened, potentially the Jedi just being afraid of the Coven killing them all, and I thought they had planted all of those memories in Osha's head.
Sick.
I thought that was what was ultimately going to be revealed, which I thought would have been very cool. And I think that me sitting here stewing in it, thinking about it, nothing could have ever topped what I made in my own head. Mm-hmm. And then when it was just what happened, and it's the same thing with a few other revelations that happen as we get further into the episode, where I had so much just like weeks of theorizing. And I think the mark of a good mystery is when you know a twist is coming, you expect something different, and then you aren't disappointed when it isn't the theory that you originally thought of, or is the thing that you initially thought and said, no, that's way too easy. Like, I think the Chimere twist earlier in the season with who's under the helmet? Oh, it's this person. It has to be this person. It can't be Chimere. And I said on podcasts, if it's Chimere, I'm going to be upset because that's way too easy. And the second it was Chimere, it was so good. And he turned a switch and he had
a whole new person.
He had this personality change where I was like, oh my gosh, of course it's Chimere. It couldn't have been anyone else. And so I think that there are moments in this episode that could have had the same effect. It just did not come off as successful for me. So there was a little twist with the fire. She tries stomping it out. Like, it isn't just like I'm evil. She's really trying to burn the book.
Yeah.
And it gets out of control because she's a dumb little kid. And so, like, things happen. But like, I do wish that there was maybe I'd felt more satisfaction, even if it was just her starting the fire. I wish there was a little bit more there that had me going, oh, of course it was her. Like, it couldn't have been anyone else.
Yeah. I honestly think, though, this is just, fire spread pretty quickly, right? So
in a giant fortress?
It's made of stone. The building's made of stone.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering, though, like, at the end of the day, like, it's like, you could see the electrical started happening, and then that's how it kind of blew up. And
there's that big machine that Coral walked past that we initially thought she was looking at in episode 3.
Yeah, and obviously that is their generator. That is their main, like, that's where all the power is. So I'm my thought process, and again, not to justify it, because I definitely agree, but like the fire would obviously track back to that generator and whatnot. I don't know. So there who knows? There could be more to this mystery that we just don't know. But to your point, we may not get the answer to that in the next episode.
We have like 40 minutes max.
Yeah, I know.
So like, it's how many questions are we going to get answered?
Right. Yeah.
I think the easiest fix in the world would have just literally a single line regarding that big generator thing, how it needs to be protected or something, right? Like even Torben earlier says in the episode that this was an old mining site. So maybe just a line of him being like, just be cautious with using your lightsaber because whatever they mined there, maybe it was susceptible to lightning or to igniting and exploding.
Okay, so there you go. Like,
right?
It could be the material of the stone that just caused the fire, but I don't know.
Sure, but this is what I'm...
Wait, wait, let me just get this straight. Are people really upset with the ferocity and speed in which the fire happened?
He is.
That's not like
he is.
I have no issue with
Me
that.
too.
It's just the fact that she started it that I'm like, okay, well that's like I don't. It's a TV show. What do you expect? There's fire. It's gonna gonna grow. Like that's what happens.
And that's why my thing is like it's gonna spread. But I get it. Like I understand. It's like it's her and so on and so forth. But we know from even just the idea of like fires in our day-to-day with forest fires and how quickly they spread, it's a thing that's going to happen, right? And I guess it depends on, to your point, Nate, if they were going to try to somehow justify it, it would have to be in the idea of understanding, either there was something wrong or faulty with the machine, or there's something with the material that they're in, like the stone, that's like super combustible. But then why would you make that your fortress if it was super combustible?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think I guess
Death Star.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So if one blast can blow up an entire Death Star, then we'll just apply
but we
that
fixed
logic
that.
to everything.
All we need to do is wait like another 40 years, and there will be a prequel movie, and they'll justify why this
who they
fortress
hired
blew up
to
the way
build
that it
the
did.
fortress. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Incredible. I love that idea. Okay, the big showdown. We see Sol and Torben walk out into the courtyard in front of Mother Anastasia, Mother Coral, and a group of archers on an elevated bridge behind them. Coral threatens them, and Anastasia calls them foolish. Sol says they come with noble intentions and asks where the twins came from and how they were created. Anastasia says someday these noble intentions you all have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. As Torben unclips his saber, May runs in, interrupting them, shouting, "Fire, Mama, help me!" Sol reaches out and shouts, "Osha!" Coral takes advantage of the distraction and readies her staff. Torben ignites his saber, and Mother Anastasia shouts, "No!" and turns into black smoke. Sol turns to May, also turning into smoke, and he ignites his saber and stabs the disintegrating Anastasia. Her body returns, and Sol gazes regretfully into her eyes. May shouts out, "Mama!" and an almost lifeless Anastasia in her dying breath falls on Sol and says, "I was going to let Osha go. It's what she wants. She chose you." Then she falls dead, and May runs to her crying. She lifts her tear-filled eyes up to meet Sol's, and he notices her ascension marking and gasps. Coral, now filled with anger, quietly calls out to May and then screams, "Run." So, Justin, Anastasia is dead. Sol seems to have realized his mistake, but now he's looking like the bad guy. And I know we kind of talked a little bit last week, like, are they going to make Sol the villain? What do you think?
Yeah, he doesn't look good in this moment, I don't think. And I don't think that at least we haven't gotten any sort of redemption from him yet. We now understand the weight of what he's been carrying, that sort of darkness that Kymir referred to, that he has buried, and it's going to continue obviously in the next few moments, but this is obviously a big one. I think he's also an example of one of those, trigger happy Jedis who's like, I'm whipping out my saber and stopping whatever's about to happen.
A lot of these guys are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, it's we've talked about we've talked about it in that, it's this show's very much a conversation around what happens when you have too much power. The Jedi are at a place where they have too much power, and they are covering up things and walking around like they're the cops of peace and prosperity, and they're the people are intimidated by them, and they know their tricks of minds and their light swords and so on and so forth. So like I think this again is just kind of feeding into that part of this era of where the Jedi don't look like they're making the right decisions, but are protected by that banner of being a Jedi. So to see Soul kind of like in that moment realize his actions, again, it's not enough to give a bit of a sort of an arc for him, but I want to see what's going to happen on the other end of this and the next episode, and if he does get any sort of resolution. I do think though that he's not going to survive this season. I think after this, I think I think it's clear he could be putting himself as a sacrifice to keep either one of the two of them alive.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Justin. Yeah. Do you think it was done effectively though?
No. I think that
no. Okay.
I think
okay, then we're on the same.
I do think that this is part of
Klein was ready to fight you though. He had his saber unclipped.
No.
He had his saber unclipped. He was going to stab you. No,
it just kind of happened though. I didn't understand why
it does just kind of happen, and this was supposed to be the moment.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be the moment. Like coming into this episode for the last few weeks, it's been what the hell did he do? I compared him in things I wrote on the direct.com, in stuff I said on Reckless Rebellion. I was like, I'm getting Joel from The Last of Us vibes from Soul. What did he do? He did something dirty. He's holding some like very dark secret. And yeah, like I saw him killing Mother Anastasia from a million miles away, but the fact that when it happens, I really felt nothing. I was just kind of like, oh, it just kind of happens. And I understand on paper, it all makes sense to me. She's doing this weird smoke thing. He's a Jedi. He goes, that's different. Poke dead.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it ultimately is. And I get it how it looks on paper. It probably like in the room on the day was like, great, we got it. But on screen, I thought it fell completely flat to me when this should have been
the moment.
This should have been the emotional crux of the season.
I agree.
Like this should have been the, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. I love Soul. Just like you get at the end, like spoilers for The Last of Us, just like you get at the very end of The Last of Us with Joel, where it's like he went on a killing spree to save something he had an emotional connection with, and then lied to the person who he saved right to their face.
Exactly.
And it just happened. Which is a bummer.
Yeah.
That's what I will ultimately, when I look back on this series, will remember the most. Like, is man, like that could have been so much better than it was.
Yeah, I think if you want to keep a secret from Soul, just get some braided bangs and then tattoo it on your forehead, because for some reason he really has a hard time discerning whether or not someone has a tattoo. And I get it. Okay, in that moment, sure, he's all amped up and whatever. But to mistake Osha or May for Osha in that like super crucial moment, I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't even understand the whole mentality around, why that was such a big deal. Like why he called out and thought it was Osha, right? And like, was it that he thought that she was going to disappear?
Well,
Osha.
Why is it Osha at all? Like immediately from the get-go, when he sees these girls for the first time, he's like, I have an emotional connection with that.
I don't know why.
And I'm sitting here as a viewer going,
why?
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? And they try to like, I guess, ingratiate the two of them with the test and stuff like that. But like the whole time, I'm just like, I am not buying why you should care about this person at all.
Yeah, and to the point, like, Soul was making a case before they did the test.
Yeah.
There would probably be a better reason for him to say, I really want Osha to be my Padawan after doing the test. But it was before. It was like all he had done was just showing her a lightsaber. And she says, yeah, I want, he sensed that she obviously wanted to be a Jedi. That's why he was showing her the lightsaber. But that's not really enough to kind of feed into this idea, well, she's my Padawan. That's the one that I want as my Padawan. But yeah, that whole moment with, like, I guess Anasea, kind of like Mother Anasea to kind of disappearing, and you know, May or Osha, whoever it was, you know, because he did recognize that, you know, she didn't have that marking on her forehead before, but for whatever reason he couldn't see it because those damn bangs are always in the way. He overreacted because I guess he thought then that his Padawan and that Osha was going to run away. I guess that's it. I now understand.
Like I understand the, like, why he had to recognize her as Osha, and why, in order for them to justify him, you know, killing Mother Anasea, that she's going to take Osha away, and then it's not, and he realized it is. But I do want to say that I did like seeing young May, look up to see the killer of her mother, because I mentioned during our episode 2 Watch Club just how phenomenal Amandla Stenberg's performance was in her reaction to seeing Soul for the first time when he calls her out, and she has those tears in her eyes, and it was one of those things that, like, that hit me from a performance standpoint, and we had speculated maybe she had some type of relationship with Soul, but no, the whole aspect of it is she's literally, for the first time in such a long time, seeing the face of the man that killed her mother in front of her, and I think that's a really great justification for her revenge on Soul. And it also helps to sort of explain a little bit in terms of her dissension from her master, from Chimere, where Chimere was very much like, I thought she wanted, you know, to be my acolyte or to be my apprentice. I thought she wanted the same thing I wanted, but what she really wanted was revenge, and that's not exactly what I wanted for her. And I think it really shows why she wanted to really kill Soul so much. I want to shout out, someday those noble intentions will have, let me rephrase that to quote the great Mother Anasea. Someday those noble intentions you all have will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. So, Klein, did she see Order 66 and Palpatine, or was this just her recognizing their dogmatic practices?
Yeah, I don't know if she necessarily saw into the future, but I don't think you need to look at the power systems that be and go, y'all are doing something wrong. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that it had anything to do with some Force vision. It is just, I mean, I hate to say it, but look at some institutions in the real world, my friend, and go, the way that that's working is not going to work forever. And I think that is what she's doing there.
100%. Yeah, it's about power, and when you have too much of that power and you abuse it, and you know, people across the galaxy are seeing that and are intimidated by that, they recognize that is going to be the detriment to their own existence. And I think that you don't need the Force. The Force to see through the future to know that you're witnessing it in the moments, you know, as how they treat people and what they do, and their the perception of them across the galaxy. So yeah, I think those words sting. And again, a lot of this is like, for us as the audience, you know, the whole idea of the dyad, do they know that? Well, we know about that. You know what I mean? The idea of like how special they were. We already have sort of these inklings of like, are they the part of the vergence? You know what I mean? So I think this, again, is one of those moments where it's definitely for us, the audience, to recognize and be like, you know, she's freaking right. She's absolutely right.
Lastly, before we move on here, I do want to shout out from my favorite mystery TV show and my favorite TV show ever. Big shout out to Smoke Monsters. Okay, Lost celebrating its 20th anniversary as well. If I have
back in the zeitgeist too, people are watching it. Did it just hit Netflix? It hit somewhere.
Netflix. Oh, you're right.
I've never seen a minute of Lost in my life, and yesterday, for the first time ever, I was sitting there on Twitter. I looked over to my spouse Gabby in the kitchen. And I was like, "Should I watch Lost?" I haven't. I have not thought about it. I haven't done it yet, but it might happen. It might happen. Nate, watch along podcasts.
Bro.
Like, is that what's
about
to happen?
Okay, don't tempt me. I don't know how much time I have, but if anything, I will follow along and definitely be a guest. Okay, so Coral starts to attack Soul. and he dodges every blow as Torben deflects the oncoming barrage of arrows. Coral screams at him to fight her, and then we hear and see some huge explosions rocking the fortress that apparently started from a little book fire. Sol finally ignites his saber and cuts down Coral's staff. He tells Torben that the twins are locked inside, and Coral turns to smoke. The archers disappear, and then she says from the ether, you should not have brought him here. Torben says, my mind's fortified, okay? I learned from last time. But Coral wasn't referring to him. We hear Kalnaka speaking Shariwuk in the distance. The witches in the common room all chant with their eyes turning black. Kelnaka, under their control, begins to attack the two Jedi. He manages to separate them and then uses the Force to pull Torben's face into his paw, and then while pushing him against a wall, attempts to strike the now scarred-up Padawan. Torben manages to block him using all his strength. Sol grabs the bewitched Wookiee and attempts to pull him away, which he does and then manages to disarm him. Kelnaka eventually begins to strangle Sol. Indara does that sick Matrix jump and leaps in and takes the Wookiee down and begins to hover her hand over his temple. He screams and struggles, but eventually Indara manages to release the witch's hold on him, and the witches in the common room collapse into a lifeless heap. Indara frustratedly commands Sol to get the twins. He attempts to explain, and she shouts, "Get them now." Klein, what did you think of finally seeing this fight with Kelnaka? You know, we've been seeing it in some of the trailers, some of the marketing material, and we're like, there's the second flashback. I also want to know, do you think the witches died? And more importantly, did Coral die?
Quickly on Kelnaka, I mean, it was cool to see this fight. This was another one of the moments for me that saw from a mile away. The second those trailers were coming out, it's like, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. I hope they surprise me, and they didn't. It was. I'm never gonna be upset when you start clashing lightsabers. Yeah. Like, I think that is just will inherently be cool. Especially, I love Sol during this whole action sequence.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a sucker for the like a passive Jedi who's just like dodging around. Like, I love like Ezra's moves in that episode of Ahsoka when he's just when he like holds the lightsaber and you can see the Force pushing the blade a little bit. And this to me reminded me of that, where he's just like moving around, fight me. He doesn't want to. As for the witches, we know the rule when it comes to Star Wars: if there isn't a body. Actually, sometimes if there is a body, they're not dead. They're not dead. I think they're going to come back. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of wish that the twins were the last of this group. I do kind of wish that this was really the Jedi slaying them all. This was the Jedi taking them out and really removing the twins' anchor in every way possible, especially Osha's, where she loses her family and her sister in the process, or at least thinks she does. And so I don't know how I feel that they're going to come back, but they will come back. I didn't see a puncture wounds like I saw on Jackie Lon's torso.
Sure.
Like, they'll be back probably in the finale.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's interesting if they're actually back, that early on. I'm starting to think now, like, anything that's going to happen that isn't going to happen in this season, or at the end of this finale, it's got to happen in some continuation of a story somewhere. If there is.
I'm of the mind that this was pitched as a one season thing, and as time went on, they've kind of been more open to season 2. So sure, they could leave a hanging thread like that, and it could move on to season 2, but maybe I'll be sorely disappointed after next week. Sure. And we will end the season like we ended Ahsoka, where I'm sitting here going, that was the first half of the story. What's going on? But I hope we get more answers than we don't.
Well, so I know Leslie Headland has confirmed that there will be a sense of closure, but there is foresight of wanting to do more in this era, if you will. But that said, like, yeah, to know that they didn't like all those witches died from, being stabbed or punctured by lightsabers. Rather, their minds were, as you described, Nate, they were just a heap of, what was it?
A lifeless heap.
A lifeless heap that could have probably, I'm imagining, would have been crushed by whatever rubble was there if it collapsed. That's the only way that they could not have survived. But I do think Coral is still alive, and if you're going to bring back anyone of these witches, I don't need the Covet. I just need her, and understanding maybe how she might have some sort of connection to Chimere / the Stranger or something, because it's not. I don't think it's just coincidence that Chimere stumbled upon May. I think there was information that was whispered into his ear, and Chimere knew to exploit that through May, and I think obviously the realization of having the switcheroo and now he's with Osha was probably a surprise for him. But I think at the end of the day, pursuing May as his acolyte was something that was probably given to him, and I think that might be the other half or the other piece of the mystery that we kind of need to understand a little bit more as the significance of these twins, outside of obviously everything else from like the vergence and the quote unquote maybe dyad that they might have.
This was the part of the episode that I think actually did work for me more than Anasea's death. I think this part, I was looking forward to it. To your point, Klein, it played out exactly how I thought it would, but it was still pretty cool to see. I think the way that every time they blocked one of Kelnaka's hits, they're pushed back, like just showing the strength of a Wookiee Jedi. The force pull of Torben's whole head into this guy's hand was so sick, his paw. And I think for all those folks who were upset in the previous episode where we met up with Kelnaka and he was dead, we didn't get to see that fight scene. We didn't. Well, this is why, right? We got that reward here. The huge slow-mo moment of Soul jumping over Kelnaka's saber swing. I'm like, dope. I want like a painting of that. That looks sick. I want it done in like a sick, like Japanese martial arts style or something like that would be really cool. But I will say the witches being unplugged from the Matrix just kind of brought me right down. I was just kind of like, oh, they're. I kind of felt like them actually, right in that moment when they were unplugged.
Exhausted. You're suddenly a lifeless heap in your chair,
heap, dude. And I've been a lifeless heap in my chair before, but this was one moment where I didn't feel good about it. It was kind of upsetting to sort of have to be like, okay, so I guess I'll fill in the blanks of the fortress collapsing on them, but. To your point, we don't know. We don't know if they're dead, and maybe we will see Coral in the finale or something to do with Coral's survival. I don't know. But Soul runs in deeper into the fortress to discover both May and Osha on a broken walkway over a chasm created by the now collapsing fortress. He uses the Force to hold up each side of the bridge to keep it from collapsing. As the twins reach out, we see him trembling with effort. And he then makes a choice, and then he lets May fall while saving Osha. He grabs her, he says, "I got you," and we cut to black. So, Klein, I don't know if this is gonna be another moment where I'm upset about the fire spreading, and you're like, "That's dumb," but I'm sorry.
Fire spreads.
It does, yeah. Exactly.
Okay, fine. I've moved on. But I think the choice made by Soul here, I'm struggling so hard with it from a place that we know how the Force works, and I want to ask Klein and as well as you, Justin, why wouldn't Soul just use the Force to hold the two 50-pound girls instead of a heavy walkway?
That's
a good question, right?
Question I would like to ask Leslie Headland about. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, Nate. I don't know what you're looking.
Yeah, I know. The reality is that that's a great point, right? That's a great call out. This feels like plot convenience, right? For him not being able to think about that, but to think
he was so emotionally distraught he didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
and
it's the same reason he didn't see the tattoo, and the same reason.
Or he's not strong enough in the Force, right? Like the other thing too is that he could not just be strong enough in the Force where he can
to lift girls. Two little girls.
He did lift. He did hold the walkway there.
I know, right? But like I think the reality was, and at least I watched it again, but like. The idea that
maybe he wants May to die.
So, well, you know what? Like that's one perspective, and that's
Okay.
why I kind of say he's
Now I
a
like
bit
that.
shady. That's a bit. There could be a bit of shade there,
Mm-hmm.
in his decision making, but he couldn't brace and hold both of them, right? Like his force, as much as the forces he was using, he was holding up the two of them, and it wasn't gonna work out well for one of them. And he made that decision, but like
I think to your point though, Justin, of it being convenient for the plot, it's one of
Yeah,
those things
it's
where
obviously
when you show me in this very series in episode 1 him force holding Osha,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can't just change the rules like that. Like not just the rules of Star
but
Wars,
in
but
that,
the rules
in
within
that
your own
episode,
show.
he's a Jedi
he'd
Master.
used the Force. He hadn't used the Force a bunch, and this episode he
Yeah,
had.
maybe he
his
was
mana
exhausted.
running
Maybe
low.
his
It's
battery
like
level
Zelda,
was
his
low,
Stamina
yeah.
meter was way
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
You can't just
Fine.
He's still like
We'll go with that.
he's a Jedi Knight, right? And at Brendok, but now and when he first sees Osha after so many years, he's
Yeah.
probably a bit more of a Jedi Master.
Yeah.
So there might be something there, but again, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with like what we've been kind of like talking about throughout this entire Watch Club. Is just like decisions being made without real justification that just feel like they're there for the sake of the plot, to
Yeah.
further the plot, to really not give too much thought around, but it's just like, okay, this is how this works, or this is how this is going to happen. And I think this kind of comes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show, Klein. Like, I like the idea of including more writers. I think that's great, but I wonder if at the same time, with so many, chefs in the kitchen, if you will, and, for bare reference, it kind of gets muddled, and then things are kind of passed over. And
Some
it's just
questions
like,
aren't asked.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, that makes sense. Let's move forward, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just wonder if there isn't that sort of foresight over top of what's happening, that things like this get missed, and like they get through production, and then maybe after they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't really make sense, and it's just like, well, forget it. Let's just go with it, right?
Well, before I get all the haters coming after me being like, well, he probably didn't like that the fire was lit in space, and I didn't care about that. The science, when it comes down to science stuff, I don't really care.
How can Jango Fett's bombs make
Yes.
noise in
Yeah,
the vast
exactly.
space,
And even though it's the
guys?
coolest freaking noise ever,
Right.
It is
I
the
don't
coolest
I don't
noise.
care. I don't care about that stuff. It's more along the lines of for the story and for
Yeah.
those cracks in the seams where I sort of just go, but from a story standpoint, it feels forced.
You see, Nate, he had been hit on the head quite hard, and only actually he thought he was seeing double because they're twins, and so
he thought
only
there was
actually
only-
saved one of them.
Now I get it. Okay, well, there you go. That's all I needed.
But I think the only thing that is really cool is that it does call into question the thing of like, did he want her to not survive?
Yes.
right?
He
So-
only talks about having a connection
Mhm.
to Osha
Exactly.
the whole time,
Which
and ultimately, it's pretty convenient that he saves Osha.
if something plays out, Klein, in the finale where Soul says, I have to kill May, then bang on. Boom. There you go. He was trying to kill her from the beginning. But let's, talking about the finale, I want to get into our predictions, what we foresee happening. We've got one last section to get into, and then we'll bring up our predictions here. Not that we haven't been predicting this entire time, but our dedicated predictions segment. So we then see Kogonada on the ship, pacing. He's distraught, along with the other Jedi, all pretty shaken up. Torben apologizes to his master, and she tells Kogonada to send a message to Coruscant. Turns her gaze to Torben and says, "We're going home." She scolds both Torben and Soul, telling them, "I warned you not to interfere." And Soul tells her that he wanted the twins to be safe. He tells her that he had to make a choice. As Soul walks by her, and she grabs him, and they have a bit of a tussle, and Torben's like, "Master, stop." And then Torben asks them what they'll tell the council, and Indara decides that they'll lie to the council and that May burned down the witch's fortress and everyone was lost. Soul says he must face the council, and Indara responds by saying, after everything this little girl has lost tonight, you take away her dream as well. And before you throw yourself at the mercy of the council, ask yourself why you made this choice. Then Osha wakes up. She loves waking up in this show. And we see Soul lie to her just as he did just as we saw in episode 3. And then the episode ends. And Klein, we get the bop of the summer. I'm sorry, Sabrina Carpenter, but the power of 2 is here. and I was vibing. I woke up from my lifeless heap and I was vibing. So, Klein, what did you think of the choice to save Osha, the choice to lie to the council with this new information, and then for our finale, what do you foresee happening next?
So I think that it's funny you use the word lie, because I don't necessarily believe that what they're doing is necessarily lying. That what they're telling them is the truth. May started the fire and everyone died. And you know what? That's right. But that would be like the Emperor at the end of the Return of the Jedi being like, you know, the Empire came to power and then the rebellion just wanted to kill me. It's like, yeah, well, you didn't really include the like vital information in between where you murdered everybody and you oppressed the galaxy. And so I think that is a very cool idea to play with in this sci-fi world. It is this, we're not necessarily lying to anyone. We are just not including 100% of what happened here, right? And so and that comes into play of, I think, what Leslie Headland's getting at it, where it is kind of this like, history is only what is written down, essentially. And you know what? Things can be lost, things can be omitted, prophecy can be changed, and so I think that is ultimately what she's been getting at with the whole series here. As for like saving Osha, they did something very interesting to me at the end of this episode that did hook me, and it was that like that nefarious, adding the quote-unquote lie to the end of the scene that we kind of already saw, or beginning of the scene that we already saw. We see her wake up. We saw her in episode 3. Soul is there. It's very like, oh my gosh, they're there to save her. It's almost heartwarming. Like they got them through this, and then getting that like little added bit of context. I thought that was, of the stuff that we'd already seen from episode 3, that was the most effective part for me. And getting into that. As for the next episode, I thought all the way up to this point, I've known where we've been going. And now I don't. Now I have no idea. Everything is off the table for me, which is very exciting. And it could be hugely disappointing for me, because I'm building things up in my head, like the planet that the unknown planet that some people are like, it could be Baldemnik from Legends, it could be whatever. Are we gonna get, like, I've been saying Plagueis is involved in this somehow, some way? Like, are we doing that? Are we getting the Darth Tanabris stuff? Is that what Kymir's doing? Is Kymir Darth Plagueis, and he wants to kill his master who's also on the planet, but he can't do that until he has an apprentice of his own? I don't know. I think we're going to get a couple more deaths. Ooh. I don't know if both of the twins make it out of this alive. And I don't know where we leave Osha at the end of this, because obviously the last episode before this one, we end and I don't know if she's accepted the dark side, but the door is open.
She's embracing the Force.
She's a lot more vulnerable than she was coming into it. And so I think that's cool that we've kind of done this switcheroo, but I think the most exciting thing for me heading into episode 8 is the fact that leading into every episode so far, I've been able to predict pretty well beat for beat what's going to happen. And I am as blind as Osha with the mask on right now. Like, I have no idea what this finale could entail, because we kind of have the ultimate answer to the series so far, which was answering the question, what happened on Brendok?
Yeah, exactly.
We know. Yeah. So what are we going to do next?
Yes, I totally agree with that. The choice to obviously save Osha, again, this whole episode is just about choices in different ways. And, I think they really hammered home that Soul had this deep connection with Osha. That's why he had to save her, and that's why she was the choice.
At least he hammered.
Yeah, he hammered it home.
They hammered
well, the
it
show, exactly. I guess you're right. But like the idea that they gave such an emphasis to it and such a importance to it, so clearly that's justifying why he makes this choice. But I do think it's interesting that Indara is the one that kind of says, like, listen, like, we'll tell them the truth, we'll omit some stuff, and just deal with this situation, because if you go in front of the council, you're going to be sacrificing yourself, and you're going to be sacrificing this girl who you've just ripped from her covet, unintentionally, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't supposed to go down this way. If it wasn't for Tormund, and if it wasn't for Soul getting super, lightsaber happy, things they misread the situation, and it's just, again, it's an example of too much power. And we're seeing Indara say here, well, let's use that to our advantage and just, tell these people, tell the council what happened in our own way, and let's believe that. So, to Klein's point, yeah, that the biggest question has been answered from the show, and that was what happened on Brendok. What is the significant history with these two characters? So it does leave a really interesting, like, finale on the table. Like, it can either go either way. It could be really satisfactory in terms of closure for some of these characters, or we're not going to get all the answers that we're looking for. I'm hoping we do get another Sith Lord, if you will, whoever it might be. But I know, for a show that, was going off the idea that it's a murder mystery, to the point of what we've been talking about from all the trailer material, from all the stuff that we've seen in the marketing, it was pretty predictable, right? Like, everything was pretty predictable. But what's interesting is now we're here at the finale, and I don't really know which way we can go. Like,
what's that one more
exactly
thing? What's that the end of Knives Out, where it's like, I thought I had it figured out, and then boom, 180, it was Ana de Armas.
Exactly.
The whole time. Like,
exactly.
They have something up their sleeves, I think, and I keep saying that, like, maybe I am giving Leslie Headland too much credit, but I keep saying every week, I'm like, they know what we are expecting. They know what we think is going to happen, and they've done a pretty decent job of, like, following that beat for beat, but giving us surprising moments along the way as well. And so I think they know that we're having this conversation right now. They knew when they were writing this that people were going to be at the end of episode 7 going, I don't know. I don't know. And I think that's a very
good place to be.
Exciting, a very high ceiling, but also very low floor place to be in.
It also feels like, again, it feels like episode 5. Like, episode 5 felt like it was like clearing the chessboard and, you're starting a new game kind of thing, right? Like, it is, there's still some elements at play, but, like, at the end of the day, it was very refreshing to get to that. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think that it can go either way, but I'm here for it. I'm interested to see what happens.
I think with Soul, like, both Soul and Indara's choice, that they made, their choice, if you will, that they made in this episode, their big choice. I was upset by both of them, and throughout this conversation, I've kind of come around to one of them. I'm still very much in the same camp as you, Klein. Like, Soul, I could have used, like, they were there for 7 weeks. Give me a little montage just before that shows him secretly meeting with Osha, and they're having a connection, or they're talking, or something, because this all happens within the matter of, like, roughly, like, 2 days ish.
2 days, yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense for me to buy into and
or do the Qui-Gon with right. Anakin thing, where it's like, oh, I sense a great power. We need to save this girl, and they don't really, other than, oh, they could be connected to the vergence. They don't make it feel important. Like, they don't make their connection feel like a big deal, other than the fact that he keeps saying that he has a connection.
Yeah. And JJ is such a good actor. No matter what he could have done, the way that his character is written, I couldn't buy it. Now, the choice that Indara made to half tell the truth, I guess, I didn't like at first. I thought that kind of went against her character, but after having this discussion with both of you and realizing, like, this whole episode is just showing us how none of these Jedi are perfect, and she was playing by the book the entire episode. Every single moment was by the book. What does the council want? And this is the one moment where there's literally a moment that where she actually looks down. Carrie-Anne Moss looks at Soul with some sadness in her eyes, and just realizes, you know what, for my friend in this moment,
exactly,
I'm going to feed into my feelings, into my attachment, and allow this mistake to happen, and not allow him to sacrifice himself. And so, to me, that actually, initially I was like, oh, the choice that she makes at the end completely goes against her character. Here, I'm actually seeing how it actually makes her character better, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't. I think the one thing that's really clear too is that each of the Jedi, have some sort of thing that they give into, some sort of like connection or something that they want.
Except for
Torben
Kelnaka. Kelnaka's a good boy.
But we don't know, right? Because they had to have done something to kind of get into his mind.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
True.
So I'm wondering what was that? What that could have been. But that said, you're absolutely right. I think Indara was so by the book. She was the voice of reason. She made the most sense. Like most of the time I was like, yeah, she's right. She's right. They shouldn't do anything. They've already been they've been in two involved. They need to get out. But no, it kind of spirals out of control. And in the end, she's here giving in. Yeah, and gives into her own feeling of empathy and sort of attachment to her peers, and she makes that choice to say, like, we're going to do that. So that's how she kind of has her moment of giving into her I guess attachments, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think, and like, sorry to prolong the
podcast
anymore. No. I have a quick question. Do you think that coming off of 7 episodes now, coming off of the events of this week, they did an effective job of essentially giving you motivation for each of these Jedi that have quote unquote done wrong, we're on the hit list, for the reason, basically for one, the reason they're on the hit list, have they justified that? And two, the reason that some of them ultimately die. Like Torben takes his own life. Kelnaka he basically like exiles himself and goes to live on this planet alone. I don't know if for me they did enough. Like I'm sitting here, especially with Torben, going, I don't know how we get from here to somebody who goes into meditation
and loses so much hair, like that poor guy.
And loses a lot of hair, and
he
an
needs
eye.
to subscribe to Keeps or something.
But maybe he carried the stress of that whole experience. I think the idea.
Yeah, and then in Kelnaka, it's the same thing. Like he just I got no, I don't know, stress from Kelnaka throughout this episode at all, and yet by the end of it, he doesn't kill himself, but he pretty much like takes himself out of the order.
I think 50 Witches dead is weighing on his mind, on Torben's mind. I do think that there is something that maybe, and again, this is us like filling in the blanks for this show of being like maybe this, maybe that, but maybe the process by which they get into your mind, something sticks in you and stays in you and infects you.
She never really
and
left.
so that's why Kelnaka is obsessed with the spiral symbol. He's got it on his walls, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's justified all of the things. Like I said, I don't think Indara should have been on that list, right? Because she was there to pull them out. But I think definitely Sol and Torben, because they came storming in, right? And then, I think Kelnaka was obviously there with Indara to try to get them out. But he was consumed by the witches and utilized as a weapon. And I think he was dealing with his sort of the ramifications of that night in his own way. But I think, I think that they did enough to at least have me understand why Torben and Sol should really carry the weight of this situation. And why they're the ones that caused this, in my opinion. I do think that, even though Sol wasn't there was there to kind of, keep Torben at bay, the way things kind of escalated and how he reacted, he definitely didn't help the situation by killing their mother, right? So, I think at least for those two characters, I feel like that. But, I think everything else for Indara and Kelnaka, it feels like, you kind of have to, like, as Nate said, fill in the blanks as to, like, why the situation. Because maybe that's this is why they've all been kind of scattered. And they're all over. Like Sol just kind of stays there and kind of goes through the motions, while Torben has like reclused himself, and same with Kelnaka, and maybe Indara's on this planet because she wants to get out of the Coruscant and do something else and be a Jedi somewhere else. So that's why after those events, they've all kind of felt like sort of uneasy about the whole thing, and they kind of want to distance themselves. So I don't know. I don't know if that wholeheartedly answers your question, but it kind of plants the idea that, for some of them, it did enough.
I want to throw my sensory deprivation helmet into the ring for the last minute of predictions for what I foresee. And I'm very much there with you, Klein. I don't fully know, but I'm going to throw stuff against the wall, and if any of it comes through, then I'll say I predicted it, and I was the only one. So I think that, I think Soul is either dying, or he's going to be locked up, taking the blame for what happened to the Jedi because of some decision that Vernestra makes. Because remember, Vernestra's still doing something. She's still investigating. She's still looking into things. She's working. She's probably got a quick call with Basil, and he's explaining everything that's going on. Chimere could die either by Osha's hands or his masters. I like the idea of Plagueis. I think Plagueis would pop off a lot. I don't think it would do enough for the side of the fandom that are all very much like, oh, Plagueis, and they all hate this show and they hate everything about it. They hate Leslie Headland and they hate the witches.
Nate, you know how they burn the internet down?
How?
Chimere is a Sith Lord. He takes on an apprentice, and by the end of the series, Osha is his apprentice, and he gives her the name Darth Plagueis.
There you go.
Bro.
There you go. Yep.
and then Twitter would cease to exist.
Yeah.
You want to talk about fanboys having hernias live watching Disney Plus? Like, that's how you do it.
That's it.
crazy.
That's it. I love that. Hopefully that is what happens. But I could also see, I think, you mentioned Klein, one of the twins potentially not making it out. I do think both of them do. I think May runs off. I think May escapes. She runs away. I think Osha's going to wear the helmet, and she's going to be the titular acolyte, and she's going to be the big bad, the big problem for a potential season 2. Like you were saying, Klein, like I never really thought of the idea of them writing this as one season that could potentially have more than one season. I think it just got in my head that there was going to be another season because of all of the interviews that we were watching where they would just casually throw out, like, you hear Leslie Headland say in a season 2 or this or that, and the actors are all saying that too. And, on the production side, I get it. If you're an actor in a series, well, maybe not the ones who died.
Yeah, you want to keep your job.
You want to keep your job, right? So you want to say, there's going to be a season 2, but yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to sort of see how it all pans out. I hope that it gets to where it needs to go. Let's get to our final thoughts for this episode. I know we've kind of been sharing them along the way, but just kind of in a nice surmise section here. I'd love to know your overall thoughts on this penultimate episode. And Klein, we will start with you.
I think that this episode is pretty well in line with what I've thought about the series so far. I think it is good and close to being great, but doesn't quite get there. It's ultimately succeeds on its ideas, but fails in some of the execution. So I think that this was good. It might be the weakest of the 7 for me so far, but I am by no means lighting my Twitter account ablaze like the Fortress, the fire we see here in this episode. I think it's good.
Sure.
I wouldn't put it any higher than that.
That sounds good. Yeah, Justin.
Yeah, I think it's the same sentiments that I have around the entire season, and it is like the show. It's good. It's good. They're getting, they're dabbling in some really interesting theories. They're opening the door to some interesting stuff, but it's not all like great in terms of its execution and its writing and pacing and the sort of clunky nature of it. It feels like it could have gone through another round of revisions from a writing perspective to kind of really hone in. And, Nate, you and I were talking about this, I think maybe last week or maybe offline, I'm not sure, but it feels like some of the problems with the show are kind of indicative of, having too many writers in the writer's room, but maybe also like this time frame of like 34 minutes, 45 minutes as being like the sort of cap of like how long these episodes are, because it feels like they're either not putting enough or putting too much of something else that really doesn't need to be focused on. So I'm like, it's just kind of like, again, it's just that awkward pacing of this show. And this episode definitely has it, even though it gave us a lot of answers to the questions that were burning, like the fire inside. I think the mentality around the revelation around, them being a vergence, that's definitely going to cause a ruckus with fans being like, oh, like Anakin's not important anymore. It's like, no, like Anakin's still important because he might be a success story, right? Whereas maybe these twins aren't, because they're not around 100 years later, obviously. Like they're obviously, they're all going to die. So, give this show some time to like kind of like cook on these things and see where it goes. But yeah, it's good. This episode was good.
Yeah, this episode for me answered some questions in ways that make sense. Like you were saying, Klein's like, yep. And then it answered other questions in just some very frustrating ways for me. And I think it chose to keep some questions a mystery, but to the point where it's like, and this show's doing this a lot, where it sort of feels like, it kind of feels like mystery for mystery's sake. Yeah. Like it just is like it's doing it just to do it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we've got one more episode. Maybe they'll resolve some of those things. I felt as though, I just think, this episode, much like you were saying, Justin, just like the series so far, has just been, it was really clunky, and I needed it to give me that wow moment, that big thing, and it didn't get there. And it's like, this is a penultimate episode of a Star Wars show. Like, it needs to pop, and it didn't do that as much as I think the intentions were there. I think there are still some really excellent things in this show and in this episode. I think the fight with Kelnaka, shout out to Jonas Suotomo for killing it. I imagine in some moments in that fight, I don't know if he had a stunt double. He's a tall guy, so I don't know if he has a stunt double or not. But shout out to him. I thought the combat was really great. I thought that fight scene really showcased the power of a Wookiee. But I wanted this episode to blow me away, and I was overwhelmed, or I was underwhelmed by the episode. And yeah, I think it's like, it feels like they're asking us to fill in the blanks a little too much. And it's starting to get to the point where, like, normally that's really exciting for us to do. That's what this whole thing is. That's what Watch Club is us filling in the blanks with our theories and moving from week to week and having fun talking about it. And I'm still having fun talking about Star Wars, and I'm having fun talking about the ideas, like you were saying, of what this show is attempting to do. Mm-hmm. But it's getting more and more grating as we go on with this series, just with the execution of it and the way that they're doing it. And yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with, like you were saying, Justin, the significant pacing and character writing issues that I'm struggling to look past. But I hope they can stick some sort of landing that excites me to the point where I say, you know what? I do want a season 2. I hope we get that, but we will have to wait and see. But that is it for this week's Watch Club for Star Wars The Acolyte. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, you don't have to get stabbed after turning into a smoke monster. Instead, Justin, can you let our acolytes know how they can reach us by holomessage?
Why, of course. They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on that burning app known as Twitter or
burning down
X at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
We also have our Discord, which you can join using the link in our description. Let's keep the conversation going. We'd love to talk to you about this show. We'd love to talk to you about Star Wars. Keep it respectful, and we'd love to have some fun hearing your theories and thoughts on this show. And if you want to keep up with the lovely Klein, can you let our lovely acolytes know how they can keep up with you?
Yeah, you can keep up with me on podcast services around the world, Controller Club, a video game podcast, and Reckless Rebellion, where we will be doing deep dive breakdowns. You think 90 minutes of this show for an episode is great? We do 2.5 hours sometimes.
Woo!
It can get ridiculous.
Damn!
When you've eclipsed 4 times the length of the episode, that's when the real conversation starts.
There you go.
You can also find me writing and editing each and every day over at thedirect.com, which I have an exciting new venture happening over there. We launched a newsletter. So I'm writing a Marvel-themed newsletter. I'm sure there's Star Wars fans, Marvel fans. There's lots of crossover. Called the MCU Top 5. You can go to thedirect.com/newsletter to subscribe. It's absolutely free, and each and every week I bring you the top 5 most nitty-gritty, most hardcore, biggest stories of the MCU relating to Marvel Studios, related to the superheroes that you love on the screen, the big and small. Every Saturday morning it pops up in your inbox, and you can enjoy it with your Saturday morning breakfast, cup of coffee, and just hang out.
I foresee you'll probably have some trailer news to maybe talk about for this upcoming one.
Maybe. Agatha, right?
I think Brave New World.
He knows, Justin.
yes.
He knows. He's the Marvel guy.
There's a.
Okay, sorry.
I know.
Jeez,
I know.
my apologies.
It is funny though that they asked one of the few Snyder apologists at the website to write the MCU themed newsletter for every week. But here we are.
Well, I have to say, Klein, I'm not big into reading. I always tell Justin. Justin calls me. What were you doing? Oh, I was reading a book. I was reading a comic book, so I'm not big into like the novels or the long form reading. But anytime I get a chance to read some of your stuff, I'm always enjoying it. And hearing that you've got a Marvel newsletter and that you're behind it is just so much more exciting. So very much looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I actually really liked your article that you wrote, sort of as a reaction piece around the sort of social media reaction around the Acolyte when it first dropped.
A true blue like opinion piece over on the Direct. You can find that over on our Star Wars tab, and just about the ridiculousness.
I'm going to put it in our show notes so our listeners can check it out. But it really is very insightful and honest, and it really comes from the I think the side of Star Wars fandom that recognizes that there's opportunity with a show like The Acolyte, but there's not a disdain or sudden like this isn't Star Wars because it doesn't feature X, Y, and Z, or that it's so woke, or these sort of terminology that's getting thrown around that really is just toxic sort of nature. So we'll put that in the show notes, and our listeners can check that out.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks again. Here on the Geekcentric podcast, we also have a ton of other episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-filled discussion for The Bear Season 3. Klein, you've been watching The Bear?
I have. The Bear is my favorite television show of all time.
Okay.
It surpassed
Fuck
Breaking Bad for me. I love it. I love it. Yes, Chef. I'm looking at my very first tattoo may be bear themed.
Oh, whoa, sick. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. We also have our spoiler-free reviews for House of the Dragon Season 2. Are you on the you're on the hot D?
I'm not. I like Game of Thrones, one of my favorite TV shows ever. It's just something I decided the fall that season 1 came out.
Yeah.
That I was going to plant my flag in the other fantasy show that premiered right around that time, which was Rings of Power. And I picked the loser in that fight, and now I can't do it. I can't go back.
That's That's fair. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the next season of the Rings of Power. We also have our spoiler-free reviews for Inside Out 2, The Boys Season 4, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Doctor Who, and Star Wars Tales of the Empire. We've got some great interviews out now, like our most recent interviews with the Canadian animators from Pixar who worked on Inside Out 2. Justin had a chance to chat with them about their roles at Pixar, what emotions are driving their consoles in their headquarters, and their favorite Pixar movies. So be sure to check that out, as well as all of our interviews, both here on your podcast service of choice and over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Give us a 5-star review, leave a comment, subscribe, share. The hot geek summer is continuing. It's about to get very windy, and it makes me want to jump into a dead pool. So we've got some fun stuff, hot geeky stuff coming up, and we'll have our finale for this Watch Club next week after Episode 8 drops, where Darcy is going to be joining us yet again to give us his thoughts, and we'll share whether we thought it was a satisfying conclusion and what we expect to see from a Season 2 after we get, I'm assuming, just the biggest reveals that ever happened in the finale. Klein, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club, and as we say, you're with me.
I'm with you.
Always one.
But born as two. Are you an angel?
Awesome.
Made of Chapor snippet.